Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous, episode number 191.
Ralph White joins us today from Henderson, Kentucky. Ralph has been out in the woods for 53 years, 35 years as a professional outdoorsman, guide for turkey and deer, a trapper, and inventor of Motion Decoy System, the deadliest decoy system in the world. Ralph talks about the favorite deer story. He's going to start off the show with that, so you're not going to want to miss what happened, how it happened, and how the big buck went down. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin. And we're heading down to Kentucky today to connect with Mr. Ralph White. He is the inventor of Motion Decoy System, a turkey and a deer hunter. Ralph, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bruce, thank you for having me.
So, Ralph, you've been doing a lot of hunting your whole life. Tell us one of your favorite deer stories.
Let's see. My deer story. I guess it'd probably be a deer that I shot at 10 yards. I didn't have my camera with me. I knew that I was on a 200 class deer, and I was up my stand, and I like to hunt over scrapes during the rut. You know, I'll stay there all day if I have to. And I happened to be up my stand, and I'm hunting over the scrape, and I looked down this old logging road, and I'm not on the main scrape. I didn't know that there was another scrape down this logging road. So I waited for the deer to pass through and get dark. And then after it got dark, I climbed down and I moved my deer stand down to that spot. And I came back a day and a half later and climbed up my stand. And about 5 minutes between the same time that he had came back by the day before that I'd been there hunting, here he came. And he came in from behind me. And I had some buckstop 200 proof doe estrus on my rubber boots, and I had made a half circle with it, sprinkling it on my boots, and then had walked up to the scrape, and I left the bottle in the scrape, and I covered it up with an oak leaf. And before I walked back to my tree, I put a couple of drops on my boots, and I was 10 yards from the scrape. And I climbed up my deer stand, and this deer came in from behind me. It wasn't the big one that I wanted to shoot, but he had a 22.5-inch spread, and he's a 10-pointer. And like I said, I'm hunting in a fork of a tree, and I'm thinking, my goodness, he came in from behind me. How am I going to get turned around? And this whole time that I'm locked up, he's rearing up on his hind legs, and he's got this pin oak, and he's got it bent plumb over to the ground, and he's just shaking the fire out of it. And just tearing it up. And you would think that he was mad at the world. And then he he did a lip curl. And then he stuck his head down in the scrape, and he knocked that bottle of doe pee over. And he threw his nose up, and he tracked me right to my tree. And I had dropped a 3 Musketeer bar wrapper that I had wadded up, and I thought I put it in my pocket, but I missed my pocket, and it was on the ground. And he stopped right under my stand. And I'm thinking, oh, good Lord, please don't look up. Don't look up. And I thought he would have smelled that wrapper, but he didn't smell anything. And when he turned just like a cow, and he went right back to his scrape. Well, when he did, I got turned around, and I got my bow in between the fork, and he started tearing that red oak tree up again, and I pawing in his scrape, and finally he started urinating in his scrape. And when he did, that's when I shot him at 10 yards, and he ran about 60. I heart punched him, and he ran about 60 yards and fell dead.
My goodness, how many years ago was that?
That was in the late 90s. That was in the late 90s, but that was I'd have gave $50,000 to have had my camera with me that day, because for about 30 minutes he put on a show that was just, every hunter's dream, to be able to see a big, nice buck, that close, tearing up a tree and just pawing. And like I said, he walked right under me, and I was just like, come on, don't look up, just don't raise your head up, but he never did see me. And like I said, he never spooked. He was just, like I said, like a cow out in the pasture field. He walked back over to the scrape, and I mean, he was just like a mad bull in an arena. He was just throwing dirt everywhere and rearing up on his hind legs and grabbing the limbs, and I mean, just shaking the daylights out of this tree. And I mean, it was a show, and it was just one of the days that I didn't have my camera. It seems like when you don't take your cameras, that's when you have your best hunting experiences. And I won't ever forget that day. I mean, I won't ever forget it.
That's just a great story. And let's just stick in right here on hunting whitetails. What are some of the lessons learned? You've been hunting for over 53 years. So what are some of the lessons learned that you want to share with our listeners throughout North America?
Well, when you're hunting, and I like to trophy hunt, and I also eat them. So, I mean, like Fred Bear once said, the size of the deer does not make the hunt, I met Fred Bear a long time ago, back in the 60s. But anyway, I remember the days, that we didn't have deer stands. You used to have to climb up and just limb hunt. I remember when they didn't have climbing stands, lock-on stands, ladder stands. You either had to, if you had private property, you built your own stands, or you just limb. I saw more deer limb hunting in 53 years. And like I said, when they go to telling on themselves in October, when they go to doing their rub lines and start making their scrapes, that's when I get excited. I love to scrape hunt. I love to get up close and personal. A lot of lessons that I've learned is you've got to have the patience of a dead man, whether you're deer hunting or turkey hunting. And sometimes you just have to stay there all day long. And scent control. They've got a lot of products, ozonics, everybody's got some kind of stuff out there. I make my own cover scents. I have acorn and persimmon, and and then of course when I use doe estrus, I use Buckstop 200 proof, and I've killed a lot of big deer using that deer lure, and I've killed a lot of deer using my acorn and my persimmon because it's natural. I like natural scents. I just, something about, I used to hunt around cow pastures when I was young, and I'd make sure that I stepped in cow patties, you know what I'm saying, before I climbed up my tree, before I got into the woods, just so that I would smell like the surrounding area. You got to make yourself invisible, because a deer's nose and his ears, are their greatest weapons against, a hunter, and especially the nose. Their eyes are not that, they're not like a turkey. A turkey will look at a stump and think it's a man and run off, and a deer will look at a man and think it's a stump, and he won't run off. So I mean, that's the difference between those two. But I mean, you just got to be invisible, and you got to be patient, and have your equipment, know your equipment, know your limitations on how far you can take a shot. I think the longest shot that I've ever taken was 56 yards, and I shot plumb through the deer and harvested that deer as well. But I wouldn't recommend shooting, that far all the time. Like I said, I like it up close and personal, and you just got to be patient, and you have to be in the woods. You're not going to kill them, sitting at home on the couch or, laying in the bed. You got to get up and you got to go. And when it's right, I go every day.
What do you mean it's right?
Well, like I said, when they're rubbing and they're scraping, I mean, they're going to come through and they're going to clean those scrapes out. And usually, I don't know how it is all over North America, but right here where I hunt, in the river bottoms and flatland of western Kentucky, a lot of these bucks, big bucks, will have a core area. And if you can find his main scrape and slip in and slip out, without spooking him, you can kill him. I've spent enough time up a tree. I've seen bucks that would stay in one spot all day long. And these does would come from every direction to this core area. And then you have all of these satellite bucks, the smaller bucks, that would chase them as they went in and they would chase them as they came out. It's just something. When hunting season's in, I'm there every day, all day. Whether I'm deer hunting or whether I'm turkey hunting, I go all day. And you learn a lot. I've trapped in my lifetime, and you learn to read signs, and you pay attention to nature. And, it's just that, when the time is right, you have to be up a deer stand. You can't sit at home. And like I said, I try to find the main scrape, that he's hitting every day. And that's the one that I'll hang a stand on.
Thanks for that, Ralph. That's really good insight, and I've been making notes all the way along. Patience, you said that a bunch of times, but you got to get in his core area, and you got to find a dominant buck. That's what I heard you saying. Talk more about how a mature deer is different than the 2.5-year-old, 3.5-year-old bucks.
Well, it seems like, it's just like us. We know turkey season's coming in Saturday morning. A smart buck, an old buck, he didn't get that way by being stupid. He knows his area. He can tell when, something foreign has been in his area, people tromping around, four-wheelers. That's something I don't do, is I don't ride a four-wheeler, whether I'm turkey hunting or deer hunting. I do not ride a four-wheeler in anything that makes noise. They're just educated. They've been educated, and I like to hunt in secluded areas. Get away, get off the beaten path, get away from everybody else. And, out here in the country where I live, I don't know how many times, that I have hunted and waited and waited and waited. And I thought to myself, I know that buck is right here in this area. And we have a lot of elderly people that have these farms. And I was astonished at how many deer that I have found right behind people's houses, within 200 to 300 yards of people's houses, of elderly people that never get out of the house, you know what I'm saying, and get out in their yard and move around. And those big bucks will get somewhere and they'll hole up and they'll make that their core area. And if you pay attention, a lot of people, there's a lot of smart deer hunters out there. I just know how I've looked at it, and I try to think like a deer. And when you see all these does going in one direction and then coming back from that same direction, that tells me that buck is in that area, and I need to be in that area. And so I'll pick up and I'll move. And, a lot of times, I'll harvest that buck.
Now, you said you move. Why do you move?
Well, because if I'm not in the proper spot, you have to move. You have to make that decision. It was just like the logging road that I was on about, you talked about my most memorable moment. It's surprising what 50 to 75 yards will do when you're bow hunting, and I was talking about bow hunting, when I say that, gun hunting's a little bit different, even though, like I said, they'll have a core area, and I have watched them in a bottoms that's a little thicket that's growed up with weeds, and I'm going to get a shot. No, he moved back in the thick stuff. I'm not going to get it. And he will not leave that area. And I have had days where I have seen 15 does come in and out of one little patch, like on a creek bottoms out in the middle of a field with growed up weeds. And you can catch glimpses of the big buck in there. And you'll see these does go in there, and then they'll come out after they've been bred. It's amazing. Like I said, I try to find his core area where he's hiding at. Now they have, trail cams out, They've got all kinds of technology out that they didn't have, when I started hunting. I mean, there wasn't even we didn't even have climbing stands back in the day. Like I said, I can remember, where you just had to hunt on the ground or find your tree you could climb and hunt on a limb. And then the first deer stand that I ever saw that was a climbing stand was called a fox squirrel, and it was made out of a little, probably a 24 by 24 platform, and it had that banding material on it that you wrapped around the tree, and it had a little spring-loaded little notch in it so that you could adjust it to the tree. And then I don't know how many people can remember Baker tree stands.
Yes, sir, I do.
Baker tree stands. I still have one hanging out in my building, but they're an accident waiting to happen. If you step on the back, on the back of them, you've got to stay out on the front of them, so that they don't slide down the tree on you. And they were really dangerous. Excuse me. But, the technology has changed, GPS, you've got trail cams, and, people put, they'll put them everywhere in the woods, to find out where the deer are at. Yes, I use trail cams. Do I use 100 of them? No, I don't. I spend time in the woods, and I pay attention to the critters. Like I said, I'm also a trapper. And, if you want to become a better turkey hunter, a better deer hunter, trap for 2 or 3 years. Learn how to read sign, because if you move one twig, those critters know it. And, don't think that a big buck doesn't know when there's traffic in his area, and he's going to move out, and he's going to go to a spot where he's not going to be bothered. And in most cases, and if you bump him out, he'll become nocturnal. He won't move at all, and the does will come to him. He won't have to go anywhere. I've seen it year after year after year that way.
Thanks for that, Ralph. And one thing we talked about in the warm-up and on your bio is the decoy or motion decoy system. Talk to us about that for a few minutes.
Bruce, it's deadly. What it is, it's a full-bodied hand decoy. Right now, I'm working on a tom. I haven't got a tom out, but it's patented. I've got a U.S. patent on it, and it's string activated, and it's on a wide track wheels. I've guided half of my lifetime, take other people hunting. I take handicapped people hunting, kids, women, elderly people, first timers, and my whole turkey season would be involved with taking other people hunting. And it would come down to like the last 2 days that I would have by myself to hunt turkeys. Well, by then they're already educated. Everybody's thrown every call at them. They've seen every decoy on the market. And I would go turkey hunting, and, my daughter's a Grand National turkey calling champion. And, I taught her to call. So, it's not my turkey calling. I know that I can call turkeys up, but I've called turkeys out into a field, and then them see the decoy and the decoy not move and turn and run right back into the woods, knowing that I wasn't seen. And I know they didn't smell me. But I sat down in 2002, and I just racked my brain. You need something that moves. Something that has some kind of, motion to it. And I just happened to step out on the deck in the neighborhood that I was living in, and I noticed kids had a ramp built, and they had skateboards out there. And I thought, you know what? That's it right there. I said, it's low profile. I said, I'll put 4-inch wheels on the front, 5-inch wheels on the back so that my decoy is leaning forward. And I said, I'll run the string through the bottom of the board, tie it to her wattles under her chin, and I'll make a counter. Everything kind of fell into place, into perspective. Now, granted, it took a year or two for me to modify and everything, the wide track wheels and all of that so that it wouldn't turn over. And it's perfected. It's absolutely deadly. I can go somewhere where somebody has turkey hunted every day for 2 weeks, and I can go out there and I could set my decoy decoy in the field and call. And times, turkeys, they'll just stay right off into the edge of the woods. I mean, this is just from my own experience. I've killed lots of turkeys. I've been turkey hunting now for 30-some years. I don't hunt them. I kill them. They're smart. I mean, actually, they're as smart as any trophy whitetail that I've ever hunted, but they're also stupid. And the first time I took my Motion Decoy System to a field, there was a hen and a tom out in this field, and he was following this hen, and I couldn't get to the field and put my decoy out there without being seen. So I crawled up to the edge of the field, and I took a 12-foot limb that was laying there, and I pushed this decoy out into the field. And he'd looked, I'd call, he started coming. He'd stop, I'd move the decoy, call just a little bit, here he would come. And I ended up killing that bird, a 15-minute hunt. My Motion Decoy, like I said, it's got a counterbalance head and neck. When you pull the string, it looks like she's feeding, and she's actually, her body wiggles, and if you pull the string a little more, it looks like she's walking. You don't even see, what we call the platform that's, has the wheels on it. When you set it out in the field, all you see is the decoy, and they just become stupid. I mean, I have killed more bigger birds, smarter birds since I've invented this decoy than I ever thought about. I mean, it's when they start coming to it, they've done made up their mind that that's a real turkey, that's a real hen, so you can just put your calls down and, get your gun up because, he's coming because he thinks it's real.
Now, okay, thanks, Ralph. Now, how does turkey hunting transfer over to whitetail hunting? How is whitetail hunting made you a better turkey hunter, and turkey hunter make you a better whitetail hunter?
Well, what we're doing as hunters is we're preying on the deer and the turkey's natural instincts. Just like the rut, it's breeding season. Same thing for spring turkey hunting. You're preying, on their instincts. They want to breed. They'd rather breed than eat. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so I compare them to the same. I mean, there's whitetails, that can be just plumb stupid when they're in rut, and it's the same thing with turkeys. They can become stupid as well, and we're just preying on their natural instincts. I mean, as humans, the great Creator put us here, and gave us the brain to think, and through times and tested and trials and tribulations, we've all come to know that during the rut season, they're going to be chasing does. In the spring, turkeys are going to be chasing the hens. And like I said, if you pay attention, and of course I've hunted a long time. Yes, I mean, it's easier for me than maybe a beginner because I understand, I've trapped for 35 years. I spend a lot of time outdoors, just nature. If you pay attention to nature, it'll even tell you the weather. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just amazing how much you can learn from nature by just staying in the woods all day and paying attention. Turkey hunting, deer hunting are the same. Turkeys can't smell human scent. They can smell, I'm sure they can, but they cannot distinct, the human odor like a deer can. They can hear and they can see. And, 270 degrees, just like a chicken, if he just twitches his head left and right, he saw everything 360 degrees around him. Same thing with the deer. Their eyes set on the outside of their head. So, they can catch movement. They can hear, but they can smell you. They're both basically related. if you think about it, because we're just preying on their natural instincts to want to breed, and if you go in there with that in mind, it's just like if I'm turkey hunting, if I don't kill him today, I pay attention to where he went. You know what I'm saying? Let's just say turkey season opens up here in Kentucky Saturday. If I don't kill him Saturday morning, I'll kill him Sunday, because I know which way he wants to go. And it's just a lot of things about turkeys is, if they're not used to going, if you're set up in the wrong spot, they're not used to going to that spot. I don't care if you're a grand national champion, you're not going to call that turkey over there. It's not going to happen. They have a routine. They're just like dogs and horses, creatures of habit. If they're disturbed, they'll change their habit. But if they're left, unmolested, and if you don't, I don't walk out across the open fields. I try to, if I do, I get to a valley and then I get across the field as quick as I can, because once they know you're in the area, they're a whole lot wary, just like the deer. You've got to get in there early. When I turkey hunt, I'm in the woods an hour before daylight, and the same thing about deer hunting, and I stay until dark. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. Now, Ralph, we just got a couple. Yes, sir. We just got a couple of minutes left, and so I want to segue into women's in the outdoor. If you could give me 2 or 3 minutes on that, and then we'll close the show with you giving some shout outs to your friends and people that helped you along the way.
Okay, women in outdoors.
Yes, sir.
I've advocated for women in outdoors since the 80s. I was only blessed with one child. It was a girl. She was a tomboy. She was daddy's little girl. I started taking her hunting when she was 3. Every time I'd leave the house, she wanted to go with Dad and couldn't understand why she couldn't go. Well, I started taking her. I lost all my hunting buddies because, they didn't want to hunt with a girl, and they didn't want a kid around. But, my daughter ended up being a grand national turkey calling champion, a 4-time Kentucky State archery champion, captain of the rifle team at her high school. 1994 Henderson County Young Woman of the Year. Now everybody wants to hunt with my daughter. Women, my wife, I lost my wife. It'll be 5 years in June. My wife loved to go hunting with me. My wife loved to go trapping with me and turkey hunting with me. I have advocated, I have talked to the National Wild Turkey Federation about, for 30 years, y'all need to have a women's division, for turkey calling, but they don't do it. I think it's so great. On my Facebook page, I post a lot of women, kids, handicapped people, but just women in general. If we got any young ladies out there and you're not hunting, you need to ask your husband or your boyfriend, hey, take me hunting. And, they're either going to like it or they're not, because, it is hard on the body. And a lot of women don't understand that it's tough. If you're going to hunt, it's tough. But I'm all for women in the outdoors. Back in 1994, me and my daughter did the first ever Women in Outdoors seminar down at Kentucky Dam Village at Land Between the Lakes. And we probably had 50 women show up with that. And we were the featured speakers. And David Hale of Night and Hale Game Calls was there as well. And we tried to educate some women that single mothers. If you're a single mother, find somebody, that will teach you how to shoot a bow, how to shoot a gun, how to shoot a pistol. Get out there and find you somebody that will take you hunting, because there's no, my church is, I go to church, but I really feel at church when I'm in the woods, and any woman all they got to do is contact me. If they want to hunt in Kentucky, give Ralph White a call. I'll take you hunting. I'll show you how it's done. I'll teach you. I just think, that, and another thing, you can spend so much more time with your girlfriend and enjoy something that you both do, or your wife, your significant other, your children. I mean, the tradition is becoming lost. A lot of guys, they don't want to take their children because maybe they're going to run the big buck out. Well, I'd rather a child or a woman or a handicapped person kill that deer or kill that turkey before I did, because I've killed a bunch of them, and seeing that look on a woman's face or a first timer, you just can't buy that.
Ralph, we're at the time in the show where you can give some shout outs for about a minute. You got a minute here to give some shout outs to people who help you along the way.
Well, of course, I'd like to say shout out to my dad. He's in heaven. He had me out hunting at the age of 5 and 6, kicking up rabbits and hunting squirrels. I would like to thank Team Realtree, Bill Jordan. He's a good friend of mine. I'd really like to thank him, for all the camouflage and support that Team Realtree has given us. I'd like to say thank you to Mossberg Firearms for furnishing our shotguns for the last, me and my pro staff for the last 27 years. Flambeau decoys, Federal Cartridge Company for the shells, that they have sent to me. Let's see, Jerry Antley, Cedar Hill Game Calls, from down in Louisiana. I'd like, shout out to my buddy Jerry. Jerry's always took care of me on turkey calls if I need some. There are so many people that has helped us, to make this become a reality. And, but Team Realtree and Mossberg Firearms, they've been the major contributors other than probably my dad.
Thank you so much for that. And Ralph White of Kentucky, thank you for being a guest on our show. And we got listeners all over North America that learned something about patience, about hunting the big buck in his bedroom. And you've just been a wonderful guest on the show. So, sir, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Bruce, for having me.
Make sure you listen to tomorrow's episode where we hear about carbon skin products. Yes, Gary Moore has put together a great product that helps you be scent free. You're not going to want to miss it, folks.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.
Remember to text 33444 Food Plot for your free ebook